come the boss lady, the Kelly Holland Show. Watch out, let's go. Here come the boss lady, the Kelly Holland Show. Let's drop it. Here come the boss lady, the Kelly Holland Show. Come on. She gonna get it right, research all about your life. Her info's always tight, talking just to get inside. Gospel talking, Bible walking, wanna help you see. Faith is calling and she's walking with the victory. The king is on her side and she never quits. Put you on the show and you reminisce. Creative to the point where she's making hits. Business savvy is a Kelly, are you getting this? Kelly Holland Show. I'm liking this. Kelly Holland Show. Come on, y'all.
Thank you so much and welcome to the Kelly Holland Show. I have been blessed to be given a newer platform and I would like to share with you today's guest. We have Miss Maritha Bellis. She is the children's author of many bilingual and bicultural books, and she's also podcast host of Mama's 411. Today, she's here to speak about her newly titled book, I Have a Secret, written in both English and Spanish. And I am so glad that she's here to help me along with that. Maritha Bellis, please let our listeners know, even though I ran through it very quickly, who you are and what do you do, lady?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Maritha Bellis. My friends call me Mari, and I am a book author, social media influencer in the parenting area, and I have a podcast. I also do Instagram Lives every Monday, and I'm on a mission to help parents and be support to parents that are raising bilingual, multilingual, and multicultural children.
That's beautiful. I find in my culture, we don't really know much of our own history. So we just latch on to whatever government holiday is going on. There you go. It's Memorial Day. All right, no work. Let's barbecue. Like, well, what does that mean? I don't know. Or more or less St. Patrick's Day. I had no idea that it wasn't even about the Irish, that the actual leprechauns were the people that looked like leprechauns. They were just short in stature in Africa, and that was the tribe, and everybody around there was about 4 feet and under, and so that's where the term came from. But I just thought it was an Irish holiday. And so that just speaks of the confusion that is overflowing in, I would say, the Black community. And whatever history we really have has been tainted while living in the US. So there's a lot more research that needs to be done for us to understand. I'm grateful that we just got a new holiday passed by the current president, Juneteenth. That's today. But I think there are a lot of digging that needs to be done on our side. So kudos to you for saying, within my culture, I'm going to write these books. I'm going to write them so anyone can read them of whatever culture. And then you also go into the parenting factors. So tell us more about I Have a Secret.
My first 2 books were written for parents. The one in 2014, right around that era, there was a lot of studies being done about the benefits and the advantages of raising bilingual, multilingual children. And all of a sudden, everybody was talking about it. So this book it's called Raising Bilingual Children. It is an ebook that was published in Spanish and English by Simon & Schuster, which I'm very grateful. And then after that, I decided to write a book about culture, and that became a physical book and also an ebook. And I entitled it Arroz con Pollo and Apple Pie, Raising Bicultural Children. And the meaning of the title is, everybody in the Latin world knows what arroz con pollo is, and everybody knows what apple pie is in the United States. And I wanted to show that there is, they can coexist, they can live together, and we could appreciate both cultures and teach our children to do so. And then right after that, I started writing bilingual children's books. And all this happened. I raised two children with two languages, Spanish and English, and three cultures. My husband is Greek American, and I'm from Puerto Rico, born and raised, and my children are American, and we're actually all Americans. So it was important for us to preserve the cultures and to teach our children the cultures we grew up with. And the languages, we picked Spanish and English, but it was really hard. There were no resources around. There were no communities like today. There's a lot of online communities that offer support for the families that are in this journey. And the more I went out and I started talking at, book fairs and book festivals and language conferences and women's conference, the topic would come up. Oh, my son or my daughter, they start going to school and they don't want to speak Spanish anymore at home. So I decided to develop this story about a little boy. It was important to me to come up with a character that children that are Hispanics could identify themselves in the story. My kids didn't have that either.
Right. It must be relatable. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted him to be a Puerto Rican character. I grew up in Puerto Rico with, people your color, my color, maybe even blonde and blue eyes. So there's a whole mix. And so it was important that for me to reflect that in the book. And I wanted Junito to feel pride for being fluent in Spanish and English, to understand the importance of being able to communicate in the language of his heritage. So that's what the story is about. And of course, that, if your mom or dad tell you something for 1,000 times, you don't listen to until someone else comes and says something to you.
Random person. Oh my gosh, men do that too. They just need the manly confirmation. I'm like, didn't we just talk about this? Oh my god.
So I made the kind of like heroine in the book is the teacher that is monolingual, but she admires Junie because Junie can communicate in both English and Spanish, and she tells Junie, I wish I was more like you. So that kind of clicked in his little head. And then she just makes it where, it's a classroom thing, and they have a day where they all start speaking in Spanish. Like, she brings up words and stuff. And it's just a cute story. And of course, half a secret is because for a while he had a secret, but then he didn't have a secret anymore because everybody knew. I think, the other thing is, kids, that age, they don't want to be ridiculed. They have a different accent, or they have a last name that can't be pronounced that well, or a first name. And so they tend to kind of, pretend that they don't speak that other language because they don't want to feel different. So, So it's all those, I touch up on all those little emotions and, friendship and a little bit of bullying. Soft, but just to show the kids, all this can happen, but you still, walk in with your, head held high and be proud that you can communicate in two languages.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And then you hit it right on the spot. The bullying doesn't go anywhere. And I don't know if it's worse now or then, or maybe there's more resources for the bullied. But I definitely never thought that anyone that was bilingual would be teased because they know an extra language. I think that's amazing that they are able to develop a second and third language. And none of it's simple. Not if you grew up knowing English and then you're trying to learn another language. We get it in school, but it's not effective. I can tell you the time, I can count in numbers, and I can say hamburguesas. That's not going to get me far in the Spanish community, okay? I don't only know the time because I had a teacher that drilled it in my head. He made a song. He's like, ¿Qué hora es? We're like, es la una. I guess I only know es la una because I can't tell you any other time. And I can count to 20. That's not going to get me far at all. But I never knew that people that had super intelligence, is what I call it, would be demeaned. And so kudos to you for picking up on the emotional side, the mental health side, and also bringing encouragement to the character within your book throughout other characters within your book. And I think that really plays into the real life that we live. There are resources available, whether it be a nice, friendly teacher, a family member, someone you want to call a friend that is truly being your friend. I think there's a lot of encouragement there, but there's also other resources, like you said, across the internet that could also provide a safe place and a happy place for people that share commonalities.
Absolutely. It's so much easier now. And, when you went to school and when my kids went to school, they didn't have the option of having another language right away, like as part of the curriculum. I mean, I live in California. As far as I know, or I'm concerned, Spanish should be part of the curriculum from the get-go in every single school. And
Yes.
it's not only here. I mean, I used to feel this way about California only, but no, it should be all across the United States. I mean, we know too much now. We have the scientific proof that you were born with a multilingual brain, and you had the opportunity to take that Spanish class from the beginning, you would have, at least have some conversational Spanish in your brain. So I'm hopeful that today we know a lot more, that we're more informed, that there are, teachers that can go to college and have a bilingual degree, so they can go and teach Spanish and English in a school. And in my research and over the last 5 years, there is a lot of interest in monolingual parents that are now raising bilingual children because they see the advantage, which comes to my belief that bilingual books are very effective because, now a monolingual mom or dad can read this book with the child and understand what's going on. Rather than, the child reading a book in Spanish and they have no idea because they don't speak the language. So I think it's, it has made reading time more fun, more effective. And I truly believe that is a gift. It's a gift we give our children when they can communicate in another language. So let's use the resources that are available and do it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I was fortunate enough to attend a business leadership presentation where the winner would receive a $25,000 scholarship. Part of it would go to their education, and the other part would go to developing their invention. And I met a young lady that was working on an app that would translate schoolwork, written work, as well as conversations from one language to the next. And she mentioned her struggle coming up in school, how a lot of the homework she had, she really didn't understand. And so how this app would make things easier for, just like you said, all of the multilingual children that attended the school or throughout. And she won. I definitely voted for her as a business leadership coach because it's necessary. There's some really nice inventions. Maybe they've convenienced one of our devices, but this right here, this is groundbreaking. She could even sell that to Google because I don't care for their translation app.
Oh, no. No offense to Google, but
yes, no offense to Google. I don't think that's one of their strongest platforms, though.
No, and that's what was happening. Some of the classic storybooks were being translated, or were, and authors were having their books translated into Spanish. And it's, it's not a literal translation. You can't translate literally. You have to really be mindful of the way it is said in that language, because it's not literally the same exact words.
Correct.
In Spanish, whether it's French, German, it's the same thing. You have to keep in mind the norms, the customs, the culture, and how it is. So it's not as easy. as it sounds. You can't just, oh, let me just translate that in Spanish. No, I just did that. I worked on 2 books last year, one of which hasn't come out yet, but it's an African American author that asked me to translate her book. It's a super cute story, and I hope it's going to come out soon. And I had to really sit down and look at it from, the way I would say it in Spanish, that would
Right.
also keep the meaning of what she was saying in her, in the English version. So anyway, it's a wonderful thing for children to be able to be exposed to all these characters and all these stories, and see themselves in it. I love when I open a book and I see a Black kid, an Asian kid, a Spanish kid, because my kids didn't have that.
Correct, correct. And I'm starting to see a lot more diversity and inclusion in the children's literature, and throughout television. You're starting to see a lot more diversity and inclusion. It's not just a traditional white family or just Black family. You're seeing a mixture of family and friends, and I think that is applaudable. I also realized that between ages birth to 5, children are a sponge, and that is the prime time to introduce any language to them, because they will pick up on it, translate it, and learn it. And you probably can't even speak it yourself. So, so
Well, it's interesting you say that, because in Europe they've always known this. I did my first 2 years of college in Europe. I bless my parents for allowing me that opportunity, and I was 18 years old, and there were kids around me speaking 5 languages without, they would turn this way, speak one another, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
yeah,
And in that, by then I was bilingual, and then I learned the third language. And you know, yes, it's amazing and it's wonderful to start when, as soon as you know that you're pregnant, start talking to that child in Spanish or
okay.
French or German or whatever. But that doesn't mean that you can start later on. There's a number of different approaches that parents can take today to start with the second or third language. And there's resources out there. Send me an email. I'm happy to send you a list, and also walk with you in that journey, because that's what my mission is just to create this world where we all understand the importance of the gift that we're giving our children when they are able to communicate in another language.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. Were you always feeling the author bug, or what did you do prior to this? You've raised your children, you got some time on your hands now. I guess there's some availability there. But who were you before all of this?
Well, I told you I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I had a bachelor's degree in languages because I just loved speaking in different languages. But I came to California to get a master's degree in communications, and I did a minor in journalism and PR, public relations. And I ended up started writing a column for La Opinion newspaper here in LA.
Okay.
Two parents like me that had no resources in trying to balance the cultures and the languages. I mean, I would go to the bookstores and libraries, and there were no books available to help me, like a Dr. Spock or, one. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about culture. How do I balance this? So I just, whatever I was doing in my house, I was talking to my husband one day, and he's like, if you have this education and you are trying to figure this out, think about the parents out there that are emigrating, that are coming to this country, that are trying to figure out how to balance the cultures and the language at home. You should write about it. So that's how I did. That's what I started with the column that ran for 12 years. And from there, I went into writing my books. Like, kind of like in 10th grade, I can look back and remember thinking, I love to write, because I had just finished a paper in English, and I really loved the storytelling idea. So I kind of always knew I was going to end up writing eventually,
Okay.
but become a book author has been a dream. So I'm super excited, and I have a second book coming, like I'm working on, and I like the idea of writing for children and just giving them these beautiful stories that they can enjoy.
Thank you so much for being a part of that. There's not many resources still, but I'm grateful that there are none. So I'm glad that you were able to publish and to allow us to gain this new information and education. What about the business side of it very quickly? You had this dream, you had the drive, you had the skill, but when it came to putting it into a book, how was that process?
Interesting. Let's just put it that way.
Mhm.
I was asked to write the book, the ebook, which ended up being an ebook, and I missed that part in the contract. But that's another story. But I was super grateful. It opened a lot of doors. Going out and saying that Simon and Schuster, that you're one of Simon and Schuster's authors, is opens a lot of doors. But then I ended up needing a print book, because then I started going to book fairs and book festivals, and parents still wanted to walk away
With a
with a
book,
book.
right?
So that's where my Arroz con Pollo book came out, Raising Bicultural Children. And hold on. And here it is. And so I
Oh, and apple pie, right?
yeah, Arroz con Pollo and apple pie. So I self-published that book. So I've gone to conferences where I talk about publishing traditionally with or self-publishing, and then this book was also published by a small publisher in Georgia. So it's been an interesting experience. I think my dream would be to have a literary agent that would say, hey, you write, and I will take care of the business side of things. But it hasn't been easy, which means that there's a lot of in the Hispanic Latino world. There's been, over the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of little publishing companies starting their own business because of that, because they don't want to go through the traditional route and wait to get an agent, and it's a long process. So they started their own publishing houses, and it's a lot of work, but they're learning their craft and how it works. And nowadays you can do Kickstarter, or that kind of GoFundMe,
Right.
and they a lot of authors are doing that. So where there's a will, there's a way. They're a
Absolutely.
lot younger than me, girl. So I feel like, I talked about it with my husband. He's like, do we really want to start a publishing house? And I just want my energy in my writing. I didn't want to start to, learn the whole process, because if I'm going to do something, I want to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy that my friends are doing it. I could become one of their authors, which is perfect. So but that's the reality of it. It's like,
Okay.
still, I mean, some traditional publishers have a department where they publish Spanish books, but we're still growing in that respect.
I understand. When you're the first at things, you kind of pave the way for others. And it's definitely difficult being both manager and talent. I can attest to that right with you.
Yes.
Please let our listeners know how they can reach you, how they can get to your books, and how they can find out more about you.
I have a website, and it's my full name, Maritere Rodriguez Bellas, BELLAS.com. And on Instagram is one word, Latina Boomer Mom. And
Okay.
if you go in there, you find me everywhere. So, but I'm also on Twitter, LinkedIn, all the important ones, Facebook, of course. Uh,
Mhm.
so you can, write me, email me, follow me, whatever, and find my books. And my books are everywhere, Amazon, online, smaller bookstores. I always like to promote the shop small idea. So there are
Mhm.
some distributors like Cinco Books and Booklandia that also carry my book. It's going to be in Canada pretty soon. Another Latina that is starting an online bookstore in Canada. So I'm super excited about that.
All right. Well, we are excited to see more of what's coming out of your tool and banks and anything else you put together. We want to see everything that comes out of there because it's all informational, it's all helpful, and it's a culture builder. So thank you so much for being here again. Watchers and listeners, we are so glad to have had this experience with Miss Maritella Bellis, and hopefully she can come back and visit us again soon.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. And thank you again for tuning in. Please join us again next week, same time, same place. This has been the Kelly Holland Show. And never forget to tap back into your unspeakable joy. Have a great day, everybody.